Hello, everyone. I'm Santa Bob McMasters, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live Show for August 23rd, 2022. Please stay with us. We have a lot more coming your way with our special guest, Santa Bill Dendy. This is Tuesday Night Live. Thank you to everyone, either watching us live or via a replay. Looks like we got a great group of folks already tuning in tonight. Let's bring in our co-host at this time. So please say hello to Santa Spangle.
Hello, welcome from dry Missouri.
Well, those of us in the South, we're not so dry. You're a little bit farther north. Luckily, I just got to say that. Yeah, exactly.
Bob's broadcasting from right there. That's the main street in Dallas.
Yes, here in our neighborhood, we have a rain gauge in our backyard, and we recorded 17.5 inches in 24 hours. That is a record. Unbelievable. And today it's been overcast, but no rain other than a few showers, light showers. But it's good. We needed the rain. We've been in a drought for 67 days without nothing but a trace. And so we were behind for the year, but I think we're caught up now. They're calling it once in a 1,000-year flood. So that gives you any idea what's going on. All right. This is always welcome our producer, Angela Mack, working hard behind the scenes to bring you this show. So, guys, this is week 34 of season 2 of the Tuesday Night Live show. And tonight's guest is the gentleman behind some of the most beautiful high-end Christmas apparel in the industry, and also performs as Santa during the year. We have another great show lined up with another talented special guest who is waiting in the green room to share his story. But first, just a reminder, all our shows are recorded for your convenience, can be seen on YouTube and Facebook at The Tuesday Night Live Show. If you visit, drop us a comment. Don't forget to give us a like, share, and hit that subscribe, and we appreciate it greatly. First half of tonight's show, trivia is brought to you by Derek Dugan's Sleigh Driver Apparel Company. Thank you to Derek for that. Spangler, everyone was kind of excited to have a different type of trivia question last week. So we're going to stick with the Hallmark Channel movies. For this week's Sleigh Driver Apparel trivia question is, what is the name of the Hallmark Christmas movie that stars Dolly Parton and is filmed in Dollywood? What is the name of the Hallmark Christmas movie that stars Dolly Parton and is filmed in Dollywood? All right, so good luck on that. Everyone get your answers, get them in, and the comment box. We will reveal the answer, as always, later on in the show. Spangle always likes to put the fingers up.
They're typing away. Get that Google going.
Get that Google going. That's exactly right. All right, so let's move on from this point.
The first half of tonight's Tuesday Night Live show is brought to you by Derek Dugan's Sleigh Driver Apparel Company. You can find Derek's store on etsy.com/shop/Sleigh Driver Apparel or contact Derek Dugan for all your custom apparel needs. Now back to our show with Bob Spangle and Angela. This is Tuesday Night Live.
You really can't be a real Santa without some slave driver apparel in your closet. I think we all have some. And I think we all need some more. So visit his shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, our special guest tonight is one of the top tailors in the red suit industry. He is a designer, a maker, a bespoke of Christmas clothing at Santa's Tailor, LLC. He performs as Santa during the holiday season and is very active in his local Rotary Club, as well as volunteers in many other local projects. Please welcome tonight's special guest, Santa Bill Dendy.
Oh, thank you, Bob and Sam Fangle. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we need party hats and the little deals that you blow. That's what we need, Spangle. All right, Bill. Fantastic. It is so great to finally have you on our show. Man, you have been so busy doing public speaking and volunteering, and think the season is upon us and the real busy is about to start. All right, Bill, let's dive in and start off with your childhood. We always like to start in the beginning, kind of get to know our guest a little bit and, move forward from there. Did you ever get to go visit Santa as a young child?
Oh, yeah. Every year, myself and my sister, we would get taken down by our parents. I grew up in Fort Worth, and we would go downtown to the Leonard Brothers department store and see the Santa there. And I thought he was the guy. I was pretty unsophisticated, but I have a picture of him of one of those visits that was taken around 1965. And when I talk at various meetings and workshops, I put that picture up there and I ask folks, how many of you think this guy could ever get a job anywhere today? And it's pretty amusing looking back on it. But during that day and time, that was great. I thought he was a guy. Went to see him every year.
Yeah, you and I spoke earlier today in length about various different things, and we were talking about the same subject: how the Santa outfits, clothing, and whatnot has evolved through the years. When you look back at the 50s and the 60s, and even up to the 2000s, and as you mentioned to me, looking at what we're doing nowadays, which is so much different than what we had in the past. Just think 25 or 30 years in the future, what evolution is going to do to the Santa community as far as costuming and that sort of thing.
Right. I look at it as the trend has always been towards a more realistic, more authentic Santa Claus. And I designed and made my first Santa suit in 2002. And I wore that suit for well over a decade. And it was my experiences in wearing that suit that when I decided to go pro, I reached back into my background and said, okay, we're going to have to take a different path to go forward with this.
I'm kind of wondering that when you used to go see that Santa so long ago in the Fort Worth area, as old as Bob is, I'm wanting to see the picture and see if it's Bob. Not to put down the dressing how that Santa was, but that was back then, and Santa's dressed a little bit different.
Well, actually, Spangle, he looks a little more like you.
No. But anyways, Bill, as a child, what was that one gift that you just had to have and had asked Santa for just to wake up and find it under that tree that Christmas morning?
Oh, there was a couple of those. The one that really jumps out in my mind, that was it was a plastic kind of a field artillery piece called a Mighty Mo, and it had a little wired remote control, and it shot these darts out the end of it. And oh man, I wanted that really, really bad, and I got that one year for Christmas. And then I think another year I really, really wanted a chemistry set, and that showed up. And I was really happy with that. My mom, not so much.
So what kind of experiments did you do with your chemistry set? How was the neighbor's cat?
Well, wasn't the neighbor's cat, but but I did explore using some various caustics and acids and things that were in the kit in combinations that weren't exactly in the manual.
Ask me a story about that in the green room, and I'll tell you. But anyways, Bill, you are a longtime Rotarian. How did you get involved with the Rotary Club? And tell us about your role as a humanitarian and how you served in it.
Well, okay. When my mother was a small child, they lived about 100 miles east of Dallas, and her father was a widower, and she needed an eye surgery or she was going to go blind, and they really had no money. And the Dallas Rotary Club, which was the first Rotary Club in the state of Texas, there was a young surgeon that was a member of that club named Dr. Lester Quinn. And Dr. Quinn went to the club and said he wanted to bring this little girl in from East Texas and perform this surgery, and he wanted the Rotary Club to pay for it, and they did. And not only did they pay for the surgery, but they paid for 6 years of follow-up care for her afterwards. And growing up and having heard that story, when somebody approached me not long after I moved to DeSoto about joining the DeSoto Rotary Club, it was one of those things that I just couldn't say no to. They're paying off family debt. Now, in terms of what we do, each Rotary Club is its own individual entity, and I served as in various positions within my club as the club secretary, and then I served as the club president. And in the 50-year history of the DeSoto Club, I was the first person ever to serve twice as president of the club. And I also started serving in Rotary International beyond the club level. And in 2012, I was selected to be a district governor for Rotary International for the years 2014-15. So it was like 3.5 years of training at a heavy part-time basis for a full-time job for 1 year, none of which I got paid for. It was all volunteer work. But I got to put hands on and get experience with service projects being done all over the region of North Texas and regionally and internationally. And it was a hugely rewarding process. I will always look back at that as probably one of the greatest years of my life, the year that I gave for service that way.
And I might mention that if anyone is watching tonight that would be interested in donating some of your time and would be interested, reach out to your local Rotary Club. Fantastic way to give yourself to the community.
Can you pick up your Rotary phone and call them?
Exactly. All right, Bill. So I'm most interested in knowing about the different charities you're involved with, and kind of a follow-up question after that.
Well, in the past 5 years, I've served on the board of directors for several charities. A foundation for the DeSoto Rotary Club where we do our humanitarian work. I was also a board director for an organization called Challenge Air for Kids and Friends, which enables special needs kids to be empowered by. We have these fly day events, and the children, these special need kids, get to come with their families and hands-on fly a real airplane. And I was a pilot for them starting around 2006 up until I sold my airplane last year. Just huge rewards for that, for these kids whose whole lives revolve around what they cannot do, to all of a sudden be able to sit in that co-pilot seat, take over the controls, and fly an airplane. And then they get to bring their mom, dad, brother, or sister, a friend along with them to ride in the back and share the experience. And, just a truly amazing organization. It's based right here in Dallas, but they have fly days from Portland, Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Fort Lauderdale, and 2 a year in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Just a really great organization helping an underserved segment of our population. Another charity that or NGO that I'm currently on the board of directors for is called Project Hand Up, which is an HIV/AIDS education project. Also does women's health education, based in Nairobi, Kenya, and it is it's great. We are on television in Nairobi now, and with our public service announcements there, and we're getting like 8 million views a day.
Wow.
And that whole charity came out of as a project of my local DeSoto Rotary Club. So that's one, again, that's one that's really near and dear to my heart. And it's also given me an opportunity to mentor and help with some advice for training mall Santas for Nairobi in a culture that doesn't really have much of a Santa tradition, but they wanted Santas in their malls. So that's been a lot of fun.
Oh, what a great story. Sticking with the charity portion of what we just spoke about, you was also a charity Santa up until 2016 when you actually went professional at that point. You want to kind of give us a little bit of history about what you've done as a charity Santa?
Oh, sure. My wife is an attorney, and she used to be with a firm here called Baker Botts. And Baker Botts had adopted a school in East Dallas in an underprivileged, economically depressed neighborhood. And the law firm was going to put on a Christmas program for the school. And so one day, out of the blue, I'm at work, and the phone rings, and it's my wife on the phone. And I got to tell you, I had never even considered putting on a red suit at that point. And my wife called and said, well, the committee for Julius Dorsey Elementary just had a meeting, and we're going to do this Christmas program. And the committee wants to know if you will come be Santa for that program. And my response back to her was, am I the only fat guy they know? And she said, probably. And I said, let me call you back. And I hung up the phone, and I called a friend of mine named Michelle Murby. And Michelle and I, the history that we have together is that we were part of this group that founded the Dallas Swing Dance Society back in the 1990s. And so we did swing dancing together. But she is a professional child entertainer, professional clown. She started working with her mother, who was a professional clown, when she was 4 years old. I actually remember in a conversation one day, we figured out that I saw her and her mother performing as clowns on ice when she was 12 years old at the Galleria Mall one day, before I knew who either one of them were. And then, but I called Michelle and asked her if she had a Santa suit that I could borrow. And she said, yeah, come on over. And so I went over, and they drug out this Santa suit and put it on. And I got to talking to her about this school appearance. And she said that she would go with me. And I said, oh man, it's always great to have a ringer with you. And so we went and we did this show, which became known as Swing Dancing Santa and Mrs. Claus. And we did some magic, some open microphone stuff, questions and answers. And then we got the kids all up and we got them dancing. And it was a great show, and they kept inviting us back to do that. And so I worked doing that as a charity Santa for several years up until, up until my wife left Baker Botts in about 2010. And so that's really when that ended for me. But I kept doing charity appearances after that, other places.
That's pretty cool.
So going back to your airplane days, giving the children the rides and stuff, how big was your plane? Did you say you held the other people in the back?
Well, mine was a Piper Cherokee 180, which had 4 seats and 1 engine. And if they were going to sit behind me, they had to be a little bitty person, because the average man, when that airplane was designed in the 1950s, was 5'10" and 170 pounds. Well, I'm 6'2" and 280. They were not thinking about me. built that airplane. And so I had the seat all the way back. But yeah, I have on occasion flown that airplane with 4 adults on board, but we sure didn't have the tank of gas full. We had to fly with partial gas to save weight.
That's understandable. All right, Bill, let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about your hobbies. Can you tell us about your hobbies that you've had throughout the years? And we're talking outside the Christmas community. And which did you enjoy most of all the hobbies that you had prior to becoming Santa?
Oh God, I've had a lot of hobbies and interest over the years. I've got 798 skydives in the logbook. That was a big portion of life for a while. I've been a historical reenactor since I was like 16 years old, and that actually comes back into play later when I talk about Santa and the tailoring business. That my background in historical reenacting really heavily influences the work that I do now as a tailor. Then other hobbies, after I retired from skydiving, made my last jump in the summer of 1987. Then I took up scuba diving and, was very active as a scuba diver, done whitewater canoeing, primitive camping. In the primitive camping historical reenactment thing, in 1 year when I was in college, I took the entire summer and we did a ride and we rode from Taos, New Mexico to Canada with all our gear dated 1840 or before. And at the end of the summer, and I got across that border into Canada, you have no idea how much I was jonesing for a hamburger.
Very nice. Well, anyways, Bill, here on the Tuesday Night Live show, our viewers always like to hear the story about the first time you donned the red suit and how that went. And also, what was the lessons that you took away that you learned from your first experience?
Well, the first experience was on that stage at that elementary school. And it went really, really well. It went a lot better than it should have. And I credit all of that to Michelle because she knew that thing. I don't think at that particular time, I don't think I knew all the names of the reindeer when I came on there. It was kind of sketchy, but I do remember one question I got asked out of that day, because we had this open microphone thing and they were asking, we were letting them ask questions. And one of the children out there said, "Well, Santa, how can you find my house?" And I said, "Well, you know where I live, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where?" And he said, "The North Pole." And I said, "From my house, I just go south and there you are."
That's a good answer.
I thought about that and said, "Oh, okay." It wasn't until much later that I actually figured out that that considering the circumstances, the kid was probably home insecure and had moving around. And the question was really, "I've moved so much, how can you find me?" But the answer was probably as good as any for that type of intent on the question as well.
Yeah, and so many of us have different answers to that question because we all get that same question, and a lot of guys have really come up with some clever ideas of how to do it. But hey, what you said was simple and to the point. I love that.
Don't fix what's working.
Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All right, Bill. So I got to talk about this. You was part of Mitchell Allen's entourage that was of Shark Tank. Share with us how cool that was to be on stage with the Shark Tank personalities and all your brothers everyone with their full red dress suits on. And did you pick up any business tips or two along the way there?
Well, I can tell you that everything that you see when you watch that segment on there happened. Absolutely happened. The segment is about 13 minutes long. The cameras were running for like 53, 54 minutes. So there's obviously a lot of stuff that happened in the room that day that you don't see when you watch that segment. And but I'm going to say it's probably as close to reality TV as you can get. You know, my story with Mitch on that actually goes before the show, which was about once he got the green light that he was going to be on the show, he wanted me to design and make that elf suit that he wears now. And we just, I mean, he took off work and he and I just scoured the Dallas fabric district over there trying to find materials in the colors that would photograph. Now, green is a really difficult color to get that will photograph well. And there's a lot of greens that when you look at them in person, they look great. But the way the computer chips in a digital camera interprets that green, it comes out looking really dark, almost black. And so that was the deal. We would drag this material out and then we would photograph it with our cameras, our phones, and then we'd look at it to see what we could do. And so that was a real, you know, drop it, heart attack, let's make this thing happen. And that thing got turned around just like on the super, super fast so we could have it ready for him in time to do some promotional pictures and stuff like that, and then go out to California and do the show. In terms of tips, I don't know that there was an awful lot of business tips that were given there. There was certainly some discussion about agency that was interesting that I'm not really going to go into because that's Mitch's. If Mitch wants to talk about that, he can. But I was certainly fascinated to be an observer there for that part of the episode. And of course, you don't get to see the sharks jumping up and sitting on Santa's lap or sitting on Santa's knee in the episode, which several of them did. It was a really fun shoot. I really enjoyed the trip out there. I stayed over, and after the shoot, we were there early on a Friday morning, and we were out of there before noon on that Friday, and I was staying over the weekend, and so I just spent my time making productive use of my stuff there in the fashion district. Going and visiting some of my existing suppliers and exploring new supply lines.
Yeah, Randy, Santa Checker Lee just put up a comment there. I've got to admit, Mitch has gotten his money's worth out of that elf outfit.
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you what. There's not many people out there that can talk about the fact that they're wearing a $2,000 suit made out of $6 a yard fabric.
Great point. Michael?
If he'd have waited, if we'd have had another 2 weeks to play with that, just 2 weeks, I would have had some absolute top-notch fabrics in to have made that into, and it really wouldn't have cost hardly anything more to have made it out of good fabric than it was out of what we made it from. But yeah, he's happy, and he certainly gets his wear out of it.
Sure does.
I think everybody has seen him in that. Anyways, Bill, let's move on and talk about your business at Santa's Tailor with an ILOR. You said you realized that the first suit you made for yourself in 2002 was not what you wanted to wear as a professional. You went online to find someone to make a suit, but then you quickly realized that nobody was making the suit that you wanted to wear out of natural fibers, breathable materials. So you decided that you needed to design it and make it yourself. Where did you pick up that skill to thread a needle?
Okay, great question. When I was in college, I had the opportunity to buy half ownership in a leather shop in the stockyards of Fort Worth. And my partner in that venture had been a pattern designer for Tandy Leather before he went out on his own. And he taught me how to make patterns and how to sew leather by hand. And so I already had some basic concepts of how to do patterns and translate that into clothing. And then the second part of that equation was, as I mentioned before, that I've been a historical reenactor since I was a teenager. And my When I first started doing that, I was doing like the Rocky Mountain fur trapper of the early 1800s era. And then I took a major step backwards and went to the French Indian War era, about 20 years prior to the American Revolution. And through all of that, in the clothing that I had and made for myself in there, I really began to appreciate the fact that the natural fibers breathed so much better, and they were so much more comfortable to wear than our modern synthetics. And so when it came time to do this Santa suits for myself, I went through there and looked, and and there were folks that were, folks out there that were making a wool suit, but it was a wool composite material. I mean, it wasn't 100% pure wool. There was nobody making a cashmere suit, and that's one of the things that I do. Make these super luxurious, cashmere Santa suits, and then they were, putting their if they did make a wool suit, they were putting a $6 yard polyester satin lining in there, which is just absolutely not breathable. And I knew that the breathability of these fabrics working in combination together was the key to the secret to this whole thing of wear comfort. We as Santas, we're wearing winter overcoats in people's houses, and it's got to be able to breathe, or I laugh and I tell people, rule number one at Santa's Tailor is don't stroke out Santa. And then the second rule is, let's try not to send Santa all sweaty to his next appointment. And the only way you can do that is by having these super breathable fabrics that work in combination with each other. In the industry, the clothing industry term they use for this is thermal regulation. And most garments and fabric combinations have a thermal regulation range, which means you can be reasonably comfortable wearing this garment from this temperature range to this temperature range. Well, using these natural fibers, you get a much, much wider range than you would with synthetics. So like when you're wearing that wool suit with that super breathable lining material, it can be really cold outside and it will keep you relatively warm, and you go inside where it's warm and it keeps you relatively cool. The Bedouins in the Middle East deserts out there, those guys are wearing white wool robes in the summertime because of the natural fiber and the breathable nature of those fibers. They could wear pretty much anything they wanted, but that's what they choose for comfort. And that's one of the things I talk about when people go, oh, I don't want wool, it's too hot. Well, you're not wearing the right kind of wool, and you're certainly not wearing the right kind of lining material with that wool. You put that package together right, it's really, really comfortable.
Fantastic. I want to jump back real quick. Something that comes to mind, Bill.
Okay.
Back as you as Santa, I know we jumped ahead to Santa's Tailor, but I had one I wanted to ask. As a Santa performer, is there a visit that was special that stands out in your mind? And I believe there's something about a magic chicken.
Yeah. Every year, I say in the Chronicles of Christmas, every year there's one visit that jumps out as being the defining visit for that year. And this last year, I had an experience that I swear no other Santa will ever have had or ever will have in the history of being Santa, an experience of working with a magic chicken, at least this magic, like this one was. I was doing an event for a company party. It was a plumbing company in the Dallas area, and it was an outdoor event, and they had a petting zoo as part of the event as well. And so I'm sitting on this bench under a tent because it's kind of a drizzly day, and the children are sitting on these hay bales right in front of me, and right behind where the hay bales are is a big wire cage with this giant red rooster back there. And I'm sitting there telling my stories, and I'm 30, 40 minutes into this appearance, and that rooster's just minding his chicken business, doing his chicken thing back there, being quiet and behaving himself. And I started telling this story about the elf at the North Pole that makes all the electronics, and his name is Applesauce. We call him Apple for short. You've probably seen his stuff. But when I said the word applesauce, that rooster kicked his head back and just crowed at the top of his little lungs. And I thought, that's interesting. And so I continue on with the story. And then the next time I said applesauce, that rooster crowed again. And I said, there might be something going on here. And so I said applesauce a third time, and he did it again. And now the kids are all turning around going, applesauce, applesauce. And that rooster's just looking at them going, oh, you like it. But every time I said the word applesauce, that rooster threw his head back and crowed at the top of his lungs. And so I made him part of the story. I worked him into the story, and it was really great and added to this total magic of that visit that had the kids and the parents just totally blown away. That they couldn't figure out how I was doing that, how I was making that rooster do that for me.
Yeah, that's one for the record books for sure. All right, so at this point, we always take a little short breather here, give you a chance to gather your thoughts, take a chance to breathe for a minute, because at this time, it's time for the Tuesday Night Live show, special product announcement, so stay with us on the other side of this. We'll be right back. Stop the show. It's time for the Tuesday Night Live Showstopper special for this week's StuffForSanta.com Showstopper special. Let's go over here to this guy, Mr. Head Clown.
Hey, everybody. How are you going? Hey, I want to let y'all know, too, that we just uploaded some new products on the website, StuffForSanta.com. If you go there, click on all products, the new ones will come right up first. Not that you haven't seen them on Facebook or whatever, but they're there now. Check it out. These socks, we talked about them briefly last week. These socks are like super thick. Got their little rubber grips where you can walk. Nice and thick, nice and warm. That goes all the way down to the toe. Anyways, I can put my big foot in there, but these are great for the ladies. They're $15 a pair. We have Santa Claus. We have the reindeer, Rudolph. And then we have this really cool one, too, with the reindeer. They all got the little rubbers on the bottom. I mean, look how thick this is. I mean, that's thick. Anyways, $15 a pair. But if you message me, you'll buy 2 pair, we're going to send you the third one. So we're going to send you all 3 of these for the price of 2 pair, and we're going to cover the shipping, too. And just for you guys, I'm going to throw in something really special for you guys. So you get all 3 pairs, $30. Message me for that deal, or you can go to the website. But if you go to the website, you got to pay the shipping. So message me, Spangle the Clown.
There you go. Take advantage of that, folks. It's winter's coming up. If summer's any indication what winter may be, who knows? Always keep your feet nice and toasty in those for sure. Okay, we're going to jump over to the lead in, and we'll be right back again.
You are watching Tuesday Night Live with Bob Spangle and Angela. The second half of tonight's show is brought to you by StuffForSanta.com and SchoolOfSantas.com, where you can find everything you need for your Santa and Mrs. Claus professional business. Remember, if Spangle ain't got it, you just don't need it because it must not exist. So contact Spangle today for all your red suit accessories and more. And be sure and tell everyone where you got all that really cool stuff. Now back to our show with Bob, Angela, and, of course, more Spangle with trivia fun.
She always blows me out of that water with that bigger horn she's got.
She sure does.
Hey, anyway, tonight's trivia, the winner's going to get one pair of these socks. So you'll have to let me know if you want Rudolph, the reindeer, or Santa. And I'm going to pretend it's a stocking, and I'm going to put something inside one of them. Anyways, the question is, how many new Hallmark Christmas movies were there made for the year 2021? And I just kind of gave you the answer.
Just kind of did it, huh?
Yep. You didn't know I did that, did you?
I guess I wasn't paying attention. Hopefully someone else was, and they can come up with an answer quick and win a pair of those socks with the goodies stuffed inside of it.
How many new Hallmark Christmas movies were there made for the year 2021?
Fantastic. Looks like we got some answers jumping in there. We'll go back. Elf Angela will check and see who the winner is. We'll let you know the answers to those and possibly the winners by the end of the show. Right now, we're going to jump back into the show. So, Bill, do you request that a client meet in person for measurements, and then once you have tailored a suit, meet again for the fitting? Or what is the process for you to make an outfit for someone?
Well, very few of my customers are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or convenient to come here. So the standard process that we do on this is that once somebody goes on to the website and they pick out the garments that they want, because I don't really sell suits, I sell garments, individuals. They pick out the style of jacket that they want, or a robe, or the style of pants they want, the hat. They call me, we talk about that, and then I prepare an estimate for them that includes all those items and the fabric selections that they want, and then I send them an estimate that includes shipping and insurance. And once they approve the estimate, then I convert the estimate into an invoice for 1/3 of that total down as a deposit. And then the next step is we schedule a video phone call. If they have iPhones, we use FaceTime. If they don't, then we use Messenger. And I'd say for the video phone calls, we need Santa and we need 2 helpers. We need one to hold the phone and move it around so I can see, and we need a second one to hold the measuring tape and take the measurements. And that way, I get the measurements just like I was there in person taking them myself. There's too many folks out there that have, people have gotten a suit and they said, "Oh, this doesn't fit right," and the response was, "Well, you didn't take your measurements right." I don't think that's a valid excuse, but you know what? If you gave them a measurement sheet, maybe they didn't take them right. I'm going to fix it, but I want to have a reasonable expectation that what I'm fixing is actually my problem. So I get a little retentive on that, and so I supervise the measuring. Now, if somebody sees me at one of the conventions or the schools where I set up, then I take their measurements there if they want and put them in a folder. And then that way I have them so that we can sidestep that part of the process. So once I have their measurements, then I prepare a work order and I assign one of the seamstresses to their project. And as the workflow allows, the seamstress will take some cotton muslin and will make a set of fitting garments for each one of the garments that they ordered. And in the industry, those are called muslins. And once these muslins are ready, I pack them up in a box, and in the box are the fitting garments. There's a Sharpie pen to write on the muslins with. There is a package of safety pins to do some pinning up of things with. And then there's samples of the buttons. There's samples of, these are the standard buttons that come with this outfit. And then here are some examples of some upgrade buttons that you can choose from. And then when they get that package in the mail, we schedule then our second video call, and we do an online fitting session, again with 2 helpers, one holding the phone and the other one doing the pinning and the marking. And one of the critical things that we do in that fitting session with the muslins is that if they're buying if they're buying a jacket or a waistcoat that has a belt that we're going to be putting belt loops on, we have them put their Santa belt on that, and we do a fitting with that so that we adjust to get that belt in the right location for them. There, that's one of the issues with the vast majority of Santa suits out there. They've mounted the belt loops too low. We've kind of, after doing this for several years, really kind of worked out a formula for how that should work and fit, so that the belt looks great when you're wearing it standing up, and then it doesn't dig into your gut when you sit down, and still looks good for the photos. So having that balance, and we do that. And then they pack up those muslins and the button samples and all that stuff back into the box, and they ship it back to me. And then when we get the muslins back, that's what establishes where they are in the line of production. And we tag it as, the date and, in the order that they show up. And then the seamstress that's assigned that project, as it comes up in that order, will produce the garments.
That is so true about the belts not fitting on a rack suit or even some of your custom suits. There always seem to. I know with mine, I'm always fiddling with mine, trying to keep it straight, trying to make sure it's in the right position, and that's such a great to solve.
I won't say any names, but I seen a Santa with a custom suit, some pictures of him the other day, and it kind of looked like his belt was wearing an old cowboy holster.
Yeah.
Way down, kind of sagging him down way low.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a picture I use in my workshop on these things where I show the extreme example of that, which was somebody that their belt loops were mounted and the belt was resting on the top of the fur on their jacket. It was that low, and I'm going, okay, well, everybody sees this as an extreme. Well, let's look at this photo and then this one and look at these varying things. Where do we go? Where do we move to get this thing right? And what I have found is that as we're wearing now these standard 4-inch belts with that's kind of now the current standard size for Santa belt, with these buckles, that the bottom of the buckle should be about 1.5 inches above the top of your belly button. And that way the belt's on that high part of the belly, so that when you sit down, it's not digging into your gut. And when I was early on in this process, I was mounting in a more conventional manner, and I had people that would sit down and it would pop a button. And I started trying to figure out what's going on here and the whys, and started looking at pictures and just really putting the detail to it and going, oh, I think I've got this. And so once I got it up into, we're using the high part of the belly, not the central part, but the high part of the belly, and centered it up there, it meant everything started looking better, feeling better, fitting better, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, anyways, Bill, your suits are regarded as high-end pieces because of the workmanship and design elements you work into each piece. For those who may not know, what sets your Santa, Mrs. Claus, and elf outfits apart that is seen as some of the top suits in the industry? What makes them so nice?
My outfits have a lot of tailoring details that just don't that you don't have. The tagline for my business is others make costumes, I make Santa's clothes. My Santa jacket, my jacket and the robe for that matter, in terms of construction, have more in common with a high-end business suit than they do an overcoat per se. Some of the things that we do from a tailoring standpoint is that we're doing a reinforced interfacing in the front of the jacket on the upper part of the chest, so that when they sit down, that they don't wrinkle up and look like Shar-Pei Santa sitting there. That we're using professionally made shoulder pads to help kind of square off, so Santa doesn't have this slump shoulder Santa look. These are tailoring details that come in fine clothing, not typically seen in even the custom Santa suit world.
So, Bill, keeping in the share your experience of the different types and shades of fur Which ones do you recommend or use on the top of the line, on your top of the line suits? What's the best?
Yeah, the fur that I use is the full name of it. It's called Tissable Volga Arctic Fox fur. And the first word Tissable refers to a company that was in France. And when they went out of business about a decade ago, but when they were in business, they made the absolute finest fall fur anywhere on the planet. It is indistinguishable from real fur. You literally have to turn it over and see if there's leather on the back or woven material on the back to tell the difference between the two. They went out of business, like I said, about a decade ago, and an American company bought the rights to their product and now produces it, or did produce it. It's not quite what it was when it was being made in France, because I have some of that French material still at my house. But it is like completely head and shoulders above any other fur that's available out there by anybody else. And when the pandemic hit, I called to place an order in July 2020. And up until that point, it was kind of what we'd call just-in-time inventory in that, which means you need it next week. You call them, it takes 3 days to ship it to you, and you get it just in time. Well, I called them and they said, oh, we're out of it. And due to the pandemic, we're not going to make that fur anymore because it costs over twice as much to manufacture as any other fur that we make. And this company, that's all they do is make fall fur. And I said, well, that's simply not acceptable. And so I went to their special order department and said, how much am I going to have to buy? And how much is it going to cost me to have your mill do a run of that fur just for me? And they came back and gave me a number, and I swallowed really, really hard and put it on a credit card. And then about 3 months later, a truck pulls up and 3/4 of a ton of fall fur came out into my front yard. 3/4 of a ton of fur.
Well, that's a lot of fur for sure.
And why did you stop with that amount?
The scary part about that is come the first quarter of 2023, I'm going to have to place that order all over again because I am burning through it like a house afire.
That's a good problem to have, I guess you might say.
That's a good problem. It sure beats sitting on a bunch of scary dead inventory. It's moving along. I do have some other furs. I was able to secure an extremely limited amount. When I say limited amount, I was able to get enough for 2 full suits of a original French tissable Arctic wolf fur that's in that brown category. And so someday, if I ever do a faithful reproduction of the Kurt Russell suit from Christmas Chronicles, that's the fur that would go on that suit. It's just spectacular. I have done one suit out of that. I have a customer in Florida, a Santa there that's very active that owns multiple suits that he's commissioned me to make for him. And one of the things he had me make for him last year was a woodland Santa outfit. And I did that out of a brown cashmere and trimmed it in that brown wolf fur.
I bet that was gorgeous.
It's a stunning suit.
Very nice. I know a few of them want that Kurt Russell suit for Santa, but it's just not my style.
It's not my style either. But fortunately, through another connection, I've had some conversations with Louis, the guy that designed that suit, and working through him because I told him the only way I'm even willing to approach making that suit is through his consultation, so that I make an absolute accurate reproduction of that suit. Because every one of them I have seen thus far falls so far short of that I wouldn't even think about approaching that.
All right.
Well, Bill, keeping in line with Spangle's question, do you only use cashmere, or if a client wants a custom suit made from other materials per se, would you do that?
Well, I have two basic outer materials that I use. One of them is the cashmere blend, and I have, and the cashmere blend is available in two different colors of red. I have a bright red, and then I have what we call a dark cranberry, which is to the burgundy side of red. And then between those two colors, I have a 100% natural fiber, 100% wool. Kind of an interesting story. My wife is my harshest critic in all of this, and I know everybody finds that really hard to believe. But a couple of years ago, I had a customer I was building a suit for that had a wool jacket that was made by another Santa suit maker. And he sent it to me while I was working on his suit and wanted me to refur that with my fur. And I said, okay. So I finished doing the fur and I was getting ready to mail it back to him. And I had this idea. And so I put that wool jacket on a mannequin in my office. And then I took one of my wool jackets and put it on another mannequin right next to it. And I invited my wife in to compare them. And she walks in and she looks at them both very, very carefully. And then she took her hands and ran her hand down the front of each one. And she pointed to the other guy's jacket and said, "Did they make this out of burlap?" And I said, no. She goes, "But it's so rough and scratchy." And I said, "Yes, and that's what they use." And she shook her head and said, "I had no idea," and turned around and left the room. And she hasn't challenged me on any of that stuff since then. But an example between, being able to, and even with that 100% wool, it's what we call a long fiber wool, where the strands are really long, and that results in what we call a good hand on the fabric, that it feels good under your hand. It doesn't have that scratchy army blanket feel when you run your hand across it. But does that feel as soft as the cashmere? Oh, no way. I tell people, if body comfort is your number one goal, go with the 100% wool outer material. It's going to be the lightest, most breathable Santa suit that available anywhere. If luxury is your number one goal, go with one of the cashmeres, because they're nothing more luxurious than a cashmere Santa suit. But even my heavyweight cashmere with that lining material will be a cooler, more comfortable Santa suit than anything anybody else is making. It's just that I can improve on that by going to the 100% wool.
Very nice. Well, Bill, do you take custom orders? In other words, if a client wants a certain design element that they have in mind and that is not your standard design, will you work with them to build that dream suit that Santa or Mrs. Claus is looking for?
Oh yeah, we do that all the time. I mean, you don't think I'm making elf suits on a day in, day out basis. We stopped and made that thing for Mitch and did that on the quick. Because we had the production capacity where we could, all the stars were lined up for us to jump in there and do that right quick. But yeah, we do all kinds of custom stuff. We will start with a base garment and let's go from there, and we can modify it. And then too, several of you know a young Santa named Hunter Woodson. I mean, he came to me and wanted me to make a pair of zipper front pants with belt loops on the top, and we made those for him. That it's not something that I didn't make a pair for myself, but I absolutely made a pair for him that way that he wanted. And we do that with customers all the time. So yeah, we do a lot of custom work.
Okay, so then once they get that design that they want, or they pick out one of yours, and they get the measurings going right for you, how long do they expect to take to get a suit?
Well, the expectation, a lot of it, part of that depends on how quick they can do their end of it, how long it takes them to schedule their part, and which is scheduling the measuring session and then scheduling the fitting session. And then once the muslins come back in, then they go into the line for production. And once it actually hits the line, and when we get to the point where we're cutting the material out, at that point, depending on the complexity of the suit, somewhere about a week, somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks to actually put that suit together per seamstress. And but your question about, well, how long is it? It's how long is the line ahead of you? Every year, that line, the line for deliveries in for the current year keeps moving further and further back. This year, this year it was right around the 1st of June that I started telling people we're going to work really, really hard to get your suit out this year, but you really you need to be thinking about this as a 2023 suit. We're going to work really hard. I'm in the constant part of my system of part of my idea behind consolidating and getting this commercial lease space and getting the equipment and stuff in here was to be able to hire more seamstresses to expand capacity this year, right now. But I'm not going to promise people stuff based on workers and equipment that's not sitting here working away right now. So if that happens, then we will accelerate out. If not, then we're looking at 2023. So there's no really set time. The folks that ordered their suits from me last year at Charles W. Howard, they got their suits in the spring, and they got their suits in the spring and early summer. Which the Charles W. Howard School was in October. That's a relatively short time frame. People that are calling me in mid-May, I'm going, we're going to work really, really hard to get this out to you before Thanksgiving, kind of thing. So,
on average, how many seamstresses are you working right now?
Right now, I have 5 seamstresses working, but not all of them work on suits. I have one seamstress that all she does for me is shirts. And then I have another seamstress that does other miscellaneous things that's doing toy bags and some other miscellaneous. I have at varying skill levels. For what we're doing on the bespoke clothing, it requires a really high-end seamstress. That's the home seamstress that's been making patterns from McCall's Patterns and sewing clothes for 20 years. They generally don't do that. They don't cut it. Interestingly enough, I've interviewed now about 15 seamstresses that have come to me with their resumes saying that they had a degree in fashion and that they worked in costuming for multiple years. And I give them my test project, which is one of my waistcoats. And I tell them, reproduce this garment to these dimensions. This one right now, here's the dimensions this garment was made to. I want you to scale it up to where for a chest measurement that's 2 inches more than what this one is. And every single one of those 15 folks have sat there and stared at that material for a week or 2 weeks and then hand it back to me without scissors having ever touched any of it. That it's just beyond their training capabilities. So it's extraordinarily rare to find the people that and I pay really, really well in the industry to get this stuff done. But it's really, really difficult. I'm just glad that I have a place like Dallas to be able to draw labor from, because if I was like in some place like Fort Smith, Arkansas, where I have lived at one point in my life, it would have been impossible for me to do the business that I'm doing now.
All right, so real quick, I'm going to kind of tell a little bit of a story here, and we'll move on. In 2018, you was at the IBRBS convention in Denver, and many of us went there, saw you there for the first time. You had your personal clothing along with you with a Mrs. Claus outfit, and had a vendor's booth, put that on display, just kind of trying to feel out if there was any interest in Santa clothing at the high-end level, the cashmere Santa suit that you make. I remember you didn't even have a name picked out at that point. I think you were going by your Santa name at the time during that convention, but you eventually settled on Santa's Tailor. And I remember sitting in there with you and Leon McBride, and we sat at your booth for some time chatting, and I was at awe at what you had there on display. So I guess my question would be, since you love doing these big events, such as the Lone Star Santa Roundups each year, Charles W. Howard, the ISC, will you be going as a vendor to the Santa Family Reunion in Gatlinburg in 2023?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have 4 booths there. Same 4 booths that I had, in 2021, or the last time we held it. I guess it was 19 that we had there the last time. So I have the same 4 booths that I had when I was there before. And yes, absolutely.
All right.
Had a comment there real quick. If you'll put that back up, Angie. Found that out this year. Scott Parker has been trying to get a suit commission. He's went through 3 different seamsters, and he thinks he finally found one that he can get the project finished with. So that just goes to show you it's out there. It's hard to find good quality people that are able to do the work. Spangle?
And that's one of those things that culturally that have left, because you talk to the folks that are our age, of a certain age, and it was like, well, my aunt did this stuff and she made all the clothes for her kids, and my grandmother did this and this and that and the other, but generationally those knowledge sets have just not come down. We don't have that. It's extraordinarily difficult to get that. I was told, just in buying machinery for my setup, one of the things that I need to get is a buttonhole machine that will make a buttonhole for up to a 1 5/8 button. Well, the standard biggest size out there is like a 1 3/8. Well, that's not big enough for a lot of the buttons that I use. And they were, saying, hey, if you find these machines, man, those are things that have already been down to Central America and they were wore out when they got shipped down there and they come back. Don't buy those. Don't even touch them. I'm exploring that there's an adapter kit that can be purchased for one of the industrial machines now that can expand that one up to 120 millimeters, which is pretty close to 2 inches. And so if I can make that one work, well, that will be at like $5,000 for a buttonhole machine, to be able to crank those buttonholes and just keep going.
Crazy.
Well, Bill, now we're coming to the most important part of the show here. We need you to let us know how people can get in touch with you.
Well, you can always find me on Facebook as Bill Dendy on Facebook, and I'm the Bill Dendy that looks like Santa. There are several Bill Dendys on Facebook. Although it's a rare name, we do all seem to be related. And I looks like Santa, but I do have my site, and it's santastailor.com, SANTASTAILOR.com. And then once you get the homepage there, man, you can go to the gallery, look at all kinds of pictures. You can click on the Santa thing and go down and start assembling your wish list for us to talk about when we get on the phone. And my phone numbers are all over the site.
Very nice. I'm sure it's going to be blowing up tomorrow. Well, anyways, Bill, let's check with our viewers, see if they have any questions or comments that maybe you can answer for them.
Okay.
Let's go to.
She's going back up the list and going to bring them in.
Okay.
Got this one.
Santa Christopher wants to know, I have a wool suit with no lining. What could I wear under it that would be breathable and stop the itch?
Well, you're going to have to take and get it lined. But if you're talking about what can I wear under it that would be breathable and stop the itch, this is going to be kind of counterintuitive, but wearing a long sleeve mock turtle 100% cotton t-shirt would get you started down that road. The lining material that I use that's milled for me in Italy It's the way they make this. Inside a cotton plant, there's a bulb. And in that bulb with the cotton in it, there's a seed. And on those seeds are almost microscopic cotton fibers, tiny, tiny fibers, much smaller than the cotton strands. They strip those fibers off a cotton seed, put them into a chemical solution where they spin it into thread and then weave it into a cloth that then looks like silk, feels like silk, but then it's actually 50 to 60% more breathable than a standard 100% cotton cloth would be. And that's why I spend that money on that lining material, because of its super high comfort rating. So if your question was, what can you wear underneath a wool suit, then I would try going the 100% cotton in the mock turtle long sleeve to kind of protect your upper body there. Or I would try to come up with a really good, super breathable lining material and have somebody make you a lining for the suit.
Yeah, Rex says, how hard has it been finding qualified seamstress? You already addressed that one. So
yeah. I end up hiring about 1 out of 20 that interview. How much would a custom elf suit cost? Well, essentially, you're still talking about those basic elements. You're talking about a jacket, you're talking about a pair of pants or knickers, and you're talking about a hat. And the prices for those are on the website. I mean, there wouldn't be really much different than making a cola jacket for a Santa as to making a jacket for an elf. I've got a design that I'm working on right now for an elf suit that I hope to premiere next year. That will be a little different than that, and I'm really tickled with it. But I'm until I have something physical to show somebody on it, I've got a sample piece of it hanging up in the back here. But we're going to try to develop that out. I'll probably get an elf and we'll use as a live model to fit form it too. But I can't even think about doing that type of thing until we get past the deliveries for this year of Christmas.
How should Santa suits be clean, Bill?
Well, it depends on what your suit is made from, because if your suit, depending on the material that your suit's made from, a cleaning process that's perfectly okay for one will be disastrous to another. For example, there is this thing out there that way too many Santa suits are made from today called flocked fabric. And the way they make that, we're thinking about flocking on a Christmas tree. It's about the same sort of thing. They take a piece of fabric, like a red fabric, and they put an adhesive on the face of that fabric, and then they shoot these fibers onto it, and then what doesn't fall off gets stuck on there, and then that's the fabric that they make Santa suits out of. And I know somebody, and I'm not mentioning names, that was using that fabric and then was calling. We had this conversation. He's complaining about the fact that the fabric's wearing down when these guys are wearing them. And I said, yeah, okay, it's that fabric. Well, if you have a flocked fabric suit and you think, oh, I really want to take care of this suit, I'm going to take it and get it dry cleaned. You have just screwed up, because the dry cleaning chemicals will dissolve that glue holding those fibers on the suit. And it may not do it the first time, but you'll start shedding those fibers like a big dog after it's been dry cleaned. So if you have a flocked fabric suit, the answer is you put it in the washing machine and you wash it. You wash it and you wring it out. If you have, there are other suits that are dry clean only. My stuff, if you're buying something that has the fur sewn onto it, which like our long robes, the fur is sewn on the robe. Or if you're buying a classic Charles W. Howard style jacket, we sew the fur on that. We recommend you clean it via the furrier method, which means you take it to a fur company and they will hand wash the suit and they will brush it out. I have a company that I use here in Dallas, and every January I take my long robe and my hat, since the fur's sewn on my hat, and I take it to them, and they clean it, and it costs me about $100 to have it cleaned once a year. They keep it for about 2 weeks, and then I take it and I zip it up in a breathable, moth-proof bag, and that's where it stays, except when it's on display at the conventions and schools, because I've been abusing that garment hard for several years now, and I'm still putting it on the displays. And for the most part, people still think it's new when they see it. So that's it. One of the things that I offer with my Cola jackets is that an option to make the fur removable, so you can pull the fur off the jacket, and then you can send the jacket to a regular dry cleaner and then put the fur back on it afterward. And of course, the pants, since we don't put the fur on the pants, you can send the pants to a dry cleaner as well. So you have multiple ways of cleaning the suits like that, but it depends on the fabric.
Well, anyways, Bill, is there anything that we did not cover that you would like to share with our viewers tonight? And any final thoughts? But I think another question popped up.
Yeah, the simple things that can be done to improve the appearance of most Santa suits. We kind of touched on that when I talked about belt placement. Take the belt out of your current belt loops, put it up on, and position the belt correctly, and then get a piece of like Tailor's chalk, so it won't permanently mark your garment. And you mark where the top and bottom of the belt is, and you have the belt loops moved up. The other thing that you can do is not only move them up, but move them in towards the middle, so that the belt loops are closer to the buckle, because the buckle is the weight and is what's trying to pull that whole front down. Because if you have the belt loops in the kind of those front quarters, but and you're still wearing one of those heavy belt buckles, it's going to want to sag. It just is. So you need to kind of pull those belt loops in to support that buckle. And then having multiple belt loops, we put a minimum of 4 belt loops on everything that we do, whether it's a waistcoat or a Cola jacket. And we do a small version of that for a robe, so because we have a 3-inch sash that can be used to pull a robe closed and tie it off, and so we put some small belt loops for those 3-inch on there, but for that application. But that's probably the quickest, easiest thing that you can do. And most of these you have, if you have some extra length in your pants on there that you could get rid of without the pants popping out of the top of your boot, there's a source for you to get material for extra belt loops. If you have an extra hat for the thing, sacrifice the hat, because trust me, the other belt loops are going to make your outfit look better than having an extra hat in there. But you're getting creative on ways to scavenge and come up with the material to be able to add extra belt loops, and then position the belt loops that you do have properly is the single biggest thing you can do to improve whatever outfit you're wearing.
Man, I love that idea about the belt loops, because so many of them, they have 3 in there, one on each side and one in the back. And I do like that idea of the ones up front.
Yeah, that's terrible. And back in the day, when I say back in the day, we're going back into the 50s, 60s, when they were wearing vinyl belts with stamped tin belt buckles. And if you go back to the 40s version of Miracle on 54th Street, he's wearing a 5-inch vinyl belt, and he is not a very big Santa. I mean, he's wearing a full 5-inch Charles W. Howard vinyl belt on that outfit, and with that big stamped the big stamped tin buckle. Well, the vinyl in that stamped tin, I mean, they didn't weigh much. They wouldn't drop the way our modern heavy leather belts do. And so we have to re-engineer our outfits to keep with this curve of this more authentic, realistic looking Santa.
All right, let's move along here, Spangle, and everyone stay with us for this week's POV segment. That's our point of view. And Santa Bill's going to be back on the other side of the lead-in and give us a short word of advice or a teaching moment, whatever he has planned. All right, Bill, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, thinking back through some of the visits and some of the questions that I've been asked over the years as a performer, and I've always been fairly good at thinking on my feet. And one of the things that was really memorable that happened to me a few years ago, I had a grandmother hire me to do a family event with her grandkids. And so there were like 12, 15 kids at this event. And I finished the visit, and I was leaving the front door, and this one little boy who was about 7 years old or so followed me out the door. And this kid is upset. And I turned around and I said, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "My mom just said that the real Santa is at the North Pole, and that you and all the Santas I see at the mall and stuff are just Santa's helpers." And this kid was disappointed. And I leaned down to him and I said, "Look, don't tell anybody, but the helper that was supposed to be here today, he got sick and he called and asked if I could come down and cover for him." And the kid's eyes got really big and he goes, "I knew it. I knew it. I knew I had the right guy." Made his day and took off back in the house. And so, thinking about these things and how this impacts and stuff like that, I'm of the opinion, and I don't know how many of you out there share this opinion, but I really don't like the crying baby photos, and the crying toddler photos that I have seen when I have done chair work. I've seen when the parents insist on thrusting that toddler up in my lap and on my knee, that and they're screaming. I can see that line of fear just going down that line of the kids that are waiting their turn, and then it's just, all bets are off. The ones that were kind of iffy about it are all of a sudden, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." And so having the elf there, or your assistants or whoever's working with you on the cue to that, and just say, "Look, there are ways of dealing with that." One of the ways that we deal with it, I have an elf that works with me for all my appearances, and she will pick up the child, and usually it's okay for women to pick them up, and she will pick up the child and stand by my side, but she will rotate her body and then be holding the child in such a way that the child can't physically see me. She's blocked the view of me, and then she's kind of moved over close to me, and then we're all looking at the camera together, and it looks like we're all there together for the photograph, but she's blocking the view. And so that's been a fairly successful thing for capturing a photo with those difficult children like that. So that's kind of it. Then the other thing, and this is probably for me the saddest thing that I ever have to do as Santa, and that's whenever I work with a new photographer, that I have to have the briefing, with them up front that says, "Hey, I can't always see what you're seeing through that shutter. And if you can't see both of my hands clearly, do not press the button. All you have to do is say, 'Hey, Santa, can you move your hand? And can you move your right hand?' I'll know what that's about and I will move my hand. But, please don't take that picture." And the fact that I have to have that briefing is really, really sad, but that's the day in the world that we live in today. And I want everybody to have a great and successful season. I want to thank you guys for all attending. I've seen several of you, the names that come across that I've been watching on the scroll here that are folks that I know, and some that are customers. And now, if you ask Eric Elliott how long it takes to get a suit, he's got a very different answer. He came up here to my shop, to my warehouse before I had the shop. He came up here to my warehouse and he tried on some prototype clothing that I made for myself, and he took it home with him. And so, he's got one of those long white suits that I made, and I've made 4 of those suits for myself now. And I haven't gotten to Christmas with a single one yet because people keep coming and buying them. And I'm like, okay, well, if I've got it and I'm not going to be wearing it on a daily basis and they really want it needed for a Santa suit, I'll sell it to them. But I really would like to get one of those white suits and make it to Christmas with one someday, some year. But so Eric's got that. I'll wear it well. I've seen the photos of you in it. You look fantastic. And thank you all for having me and being such gracious folks for the interview tonight.
Very, very wise words, Bill. All right, so at this point, let's reveal tonight's trivia answers. Sleigh Driver Apparel, what is the name of the Hallmark movie that stars Dolly Parton, filmed at Dollywood? Christmas at Dollywood is the correct answer there. Do we have a winner on that one?
Eric and Moesha.
Eric and Moesha wins it. There you go. Speaking of Eric and Moesha. Very good. So Stuff for Santa and schoolofsantas.com. How many new Hallmark Christmas movies were made in the year 2021? The correct answer there is 41. And that's pretty astonishing to think 41 movies.
Yeah, but think about it. 2021, 41.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I caught on to that after you had mentioned it earlier, and I didn't catch it at first, and I got to thinking about it, and it came to me. All right, Spangle.
All right, but Bill, I don't know if we mentioned this to you before. When we're all done and over, don't leave. We're going to be in the green room looking for M&Ms or something. All right. But anyway, Bill, before we go, can you share the story that you shared at the last Texas State Santa's Eating Meat back in June about the customers from Germany?
Well, yeah, okay. Well, it wasn't about customers, but it was about customs. German Christmas traditions involving Santa are very different than what we have here, and I laugh about my wife is native German, and I've told her that I said unraveling German Christmas traditions is very similar to peeling an onion. Every time you get to another layer, you just want to cry. But in terms of like dealing with Santa, it's not part of their culture to sit on Santa's knee and talk and tell them what they want for Christmas. They just don't do that. Instead, they line up in an orderly line because they're German. It's in their DNA and they can't help it. They get in an orderly line, and when it's their turn, they step up front and center, and they will do a piece of personal performance art for Santa in the hopes that if they do a really good job, they just might get something on Christmas Eve from Santa. And when I say personal performance art, man, they'll sing a song, they'll read a poem, they'll tell a story, they'll do a dance, they'll play an instrument or some combination of all those things. It's just amazing. And they will just do this personal little performance for me. And that's that tradition of their interaction with Santa. So it really wasn't necessary for me to have an extensive German vocabulary to be an American Santa in Germany. My brother-in-law there says it actually, I'm much more believable because the kids all know that Santa's from a long ways away and doesn't sound like the corner butcher. And so it actually worked for me very, very well.
It kind of reminds me of Halloween. From when I was a child, you go to a house. A lot of times you had to do a trick before you could get the treat.
Yeah, along those lines. But yeah, and once a year, about once a year on average, in doing my appearances here, I will have a child that will spontaneously do something for me like that and perform for me. And when that happens, I basically just kind of clear the decks. And I talk to them about the children in Germany doing that for me and how much I appreciate it and how much I miss that. And I thank them for it.
Very nice.
But
I enjoyed the story at the Eat Meat last time. All right.
I see
So
this thing about the Christmas market, saying the Christmas markets in Frankfurt. The two best Christmas markets in Germany are the ones in Stuttgart, which I think is the best one, and the one in Nuremberg, which is the largest one. But the one in Stuttgart, I spent it took me 3.5 long days from like 9 o'clock in the morning till basically 9:30, 10 o'clock at night to see all of the Christmas market. There, 3.5 days of that.
that's big. That's definitely big. All right. So real quick, we did have a winner for Spangles, and it's Jeff Ollett. Congratulations, Jeff. Okay, folks, so we invite you all to join us next week as our guests will be Deanna Golden and Judith Broderick with Santa Nana's Holiday University. And so over to Spangle from there. Just want to
All right. Well, Bill, we want to thank you for being such a great guest. And we hope everyone learns something from you. Your expertise as a Santa tailor.
That's right. Just want to say thank you, Bill, for coming on the show and sharing your story, your experience. Good luck, my friend, on your Santa company. I know you're having trouble, like you said, finding qualified seamsters. But, you know, good luck on Santa's Tailor LLC and the growth that you're going through. And also good luck on the upcoming Christmas season. Spike,
Thank you so
any
much.
comments or thoughts?
No, I think everything was great. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I liked the tip about the belt loops in the front, to hold the belt. I mean, just take something away from every show.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. All right. So tell everyone good night, Spangle.
Good night, Spangle.
Very good. A big thank you to Derek Dugan and Slay Driver Apparel, also stuffforsanta.com and schoolofsantas.com, Mr. Spangle himself. Our recorded videos can be seen on our Facebook group as well as our YouTube channel. So be sure and go over and check it out. Remember, we couldn't do this without you all watching and your input into the show. Thank you again. Remember to join us for our next Tuesday Night Live each week, 7 p.m. Same claws time, same claws channel. Count your blessings, not your sorrows. Have a blessed week. Until next time, on behalf of Santa Bill Dendy, Spangle, Angela, and myself, I'm Santa Bob McMaster saying good night and see everyone next week.